Sydney earlier this year.
Just been told, Dave, that the women are through the 14-mile mark in 2.5 minutes faster than they were last year. Mota ran 2:26 last year. So converting that, they're probably around 2:21 pace.
2:20, yep.
2:21, so they're certainly slowed up. It may turn into a battle. They'll give the world's best away and concentrate on who's going to win.
Well, I think once they surrender in their own minds and start to slow the pace, I think it then becomes a lot more probable that someone like Mota from the chasing group can actually pick them up. Once they settle into more thinking about who's going to win the race than actually concentrating on running it, that's when the danger period will come for the two leaders.
What's best for Castella at this stage? Does he want that pack to be with him for as long as possible? He's virtually running on his own. He's 4 or 5 metres in front of the group.
I think at this stage, even at this stage, with probably 10 miles to run, for Rob, it's still he's running his own race now. I think he's alone as much as Jones is, because he's decided that he's going to keep that group going. 17 miles in about 1:20:38.
You mentioned the improvement there in the performance of the women at that point of the race last year. We just wonder, Bruce, just how far the improvement in times can go, because if we look at Rosa Mota's time last year of 2:26:01, that was 5 minutes and 10 seconds faster than her first marathon just 2 years before. So there was a 5-minute improvement in 2 years.
Of course, yeah, in the meantime, though, she had improved in the Olympic Games to 2:26:57, so it had been a gradual improvement. But you are right, 5 minutes in a race in 1 year is an enormous improvement, and if Mota can run around 2:23 this year, she'll be well satisfied. And if she does, she might still get into the finish. What's that?
Bruce, my quick mental calculations still have Jones on 4:45 mile rate, which will give him a finishing time of about 2:04:30. So perhaps he's slowed marginally. And as I said, I think at this stage of the race, any sign of a slowdown by Jones isn't a good sign. Obviously, he wasn't going to maintain that pace all the way through to the finish, but the further he could maintain it, the greater would be his winning chance, obviously. Once you start to slow down, the tendency is just to get slower and slower.
It's new territory for him also. I mean, he hasn't been beaten in a marathon he's completed, but he's never done it like this. I mean, in London, he had Spedding and Hutton and a group for a long time. In Chicago, as we well know, he had a long group for a long time and then broke away. So, as tough as he is mentally, this is a real test ring.
Yeah, maybe too. I guess perhaps next year he's got a major championship race coming up, and he's yet to run a major championship marathon. Perhaps he sort of feels that Chicago Marathon 1985 is a good time to just test his own mental toughness by running this kind of a race.
I'll tell you what, the old steeplechase is going pretty well there too.
Ken Martin, yes, with the
very well.
Black shorts and the look like the Athletics West top on, or the red across with the white singlet. He's only about 5 or 6 metres behind Robert Castella.
As we mentioned earlier, he's only run the 2 marathons at Sacramento and Pittsburgh with success on both occasions.
Yes, 2:11 and 23 in the first one, and then 2:12:57. But the Pittsburgh run was in poor conditions. Deeks just got, there was a clock there which would have said about 1:23, so it must have been a marker there for Castella. It may have been the 17-mile mark, do you think?
It may have been.
I hope not, because it would mean they're a long way behind.
Well, it would still put them at about 1:20 behind. They were 1:30 behind at halfway, so that's a significant gain in the...
Is that 1:20 or 2:20?
1:20. Gee, my mental arithmetic's going to the pack, Bruce. Let's just ignore that one for a minute until we get a confirmation.
There's Kerp, 21. 28 is Gomez. There's Poli, the tall Italian with the longish hair. Now, on the left, you just can't quite see him in the black, is Jorgensen. Yes, they're telling us that the Mexican is Gomez, who, in fact, wasn't in the elite group that we were given. Robleh Djama is still in that group. I don't think that could have been the 7-mile mark.
No, it couldn't have been, because that would mean that they had lost another minute to Jones.
Well, it's a great performance by Mark Kerp, the American, in his first ever marathon. That was him in 21, just camped on Castella's right shoulder. But there's the leader of the Chicago Marathon, Steve Jones.
And at the moment, Dave, if Jones can keep going, we're going to see a new world record. 2:07:12 is the time. And the women at, what are they, Leonard? They're just outside the world record at 25K.
25K.
1:22:59. about 4 seconds outside the record.
So they've gone from a situation early in the race of being miles inside of it. I think 2:15.55 was their fastest projected time. So they've dropped back to around about the world record pace. So the critical point for them in terms of the world record will be the next 5 kilometres. If they can hang on to the 2:21, then they may have a chance. But if they drop back another half a minute, is it Poli, Martin, Gomez and also De Castella have split that group up. There was a gap of 15 metres. When we come back to it, I've got a feeling that gap might have increased. Now, this is a brilliant race because not only do we have Jones in front and on world record pace by a long way, we have the two great women, Benoit and Kristiansen, running at 2:20 pace at the moment, and at the 17-mile mark. So they've still got 50 seconds up their sleeve in terms of the world record. And as interesting to me, anyway, is the fact that we've still got a great contest going on between the two of them.
Yeah, I think we've got to get a great race almost all the way to the finish from that situation there.
So this group here, Dave, it has split up a bit. Now, Robleh's quickly got onto the De Castella group, and I think Jorgensen might have gone off the back. You'd expect Pacheco and also Janica to go off the back of this group. Certainly Poli is right with De Castella. That's De Castella, Poli behind him. You can just see Robleh behind him. Gomez still there, and I think Ken Martin might be in the group. I haven't seen Kurt. No, I haven't seen Kurt for a little while. Have you, Len?
It's strung out in single file. He was still in the group a little while ago when they were running more spread out across the road. It's a bit hard to pick at the moment.
But you can see there's a definite break there.
There is a break.
Kurt there.
There's Janicki at the back of the group, we can see.
And also Gomez, but Jorgensen's gone off the back.
Definitely, yes.
So that group's gone from about 8 to 5.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, where that group was running is about the point where Steve Jones made his move last year.
If Jones can finish like he did last year, we've got a world record with no worries at all. We've got about a 2:4.
Yeah.
But
he's slowing, but it's not a critical slowdown yet.
Those two girls also, Bruce, still well inside the projected time for a new world record.
It's I'm getting a great buzz out of this. I hope the people that are watching at home are. At the moment, he's got to blow up pretty badly to run slower than his 2:8.05. Which is his best. He's got to lose a lot of time in the last 6 miles, doesn't he? You're looking at about 30 seconds a mile.
Yep, that's right.
That's a big blow-up.
He ran the second 10 miles about just over a minute slower than the first 10.
Is this a break by Benoit, do you think?
It looks like it. Certainly, Kristiansen's moved to the head of that group of men in an effort to try and follow her, and she looks like she is.
She's closing it, yes.
Closing the gap.
That's as big a gap as Benoit's ever had. No, Kristiansen is closing, so... Benoit, I think, might have had a little tickle there and a little try.
Yep, she certainly has. Kristiansen, again, she's not the best looking of runners, so it's hard to tell whether she's struggling.
So that's where Steve Jones is at the moment, in Racine Avenue, heading north. And then they sweep into Montrose Avenue before they come down. The finishing, of course, is at Lincoln Park.
You must think Chicago's the most painful place in the world, I think, Jones. I don't think you'd be taking in the scenery very much at this stage. So Benoit and Kristiansen have got away from the men again. So they've maintained that around the 2:19 pace.
Yeah, that's right. Benoit's, in fact, their projected time there was about 15 seconds faster than it was the last time we saw it a couple of miles back. So that would indicate there has been an attempt by Benoit to break away.
In that aerial shot there, we saw Wrigley Field, which is the home of the Cubs in Chicago. And now here's...
Well, Poli's gone, Dave, which is interesting. So it's only Robleh and De Castella. And when we looked at the pedigrees before the race, these were the three guys that you looked at, De Castella, Robleh and Jones. So Poli's gone off the group.
I think there's runners not too far behind these blokes. Or was that Deke's heels I could see flicking into the picture?
Call the downhill part for him. And Deeks and also Robleh is some minute and a half, 2 minutes behind. We're just not sure exactly at this stage how far they're behind, but they certainly haven't closed.
No, I discount that 2.5 minutes. I find it impossible to envisage that they dropped another minute from the halfway.
There's a 21 mile mark.
21 miles in about 1:40.25. So that mile pace is just over 5 minutes a mile, which is starting to look like a significant slowdown. A couple of miles ago, it was 4:52.
This is interesting, Dave and Len. This is the biggest gap we've seen. It's not insurmountable, but it's 10-15 metres.
And the strain is starting to show on Kristiansen.
So there has a small gap has opened up there.
Yes, in fact, in this shot, which is a little bit closer to ground level, it looks to be every bit of 10 or 20 metres. Kristiansen is throwing her head around a little bit more than she was. She's a tough runner, though. I don't think she's going to surrender too easily.
Well, Jones is looking at this stage at about a 2:05.01.
And Benoit's looking around 2:20. So we just might be seeing the most remarkable marathon
of all time
when we combine both the male and female sections. Benoit, have a look at this is the look at the course through North Avenue.
Well, they've well and truly gone right through this area. We're now coming around towards the 13-mile mark. You can see the markings there. And Jones well and truly through this area at the moment. He's currently approaching the 22-mile mark, which is actually in Clark Street. You'll see that come up in a moment. And then they swing right into Montrose Avenue. And there we see Wrigley Field, the home of the Chicago Cubs. We'll take a break here on Network 10 as we resume our coverage. The leader, the man in picture, Steve Jones of Wales. Very sizable gap on Robleh Castella.
Yes, and we saw when Rob took the drink some half a mile away ago that Robleh had pinched a bit of a break on him, and obviously Deeks is going through a patch where he's finding it hard to hang on. Robleh's probably accelerated here then because he looked very comfortable. He keeps looking back for Deeks. If he looks in front, he might see Jones.
That's right, yes. He must come into sight fairly soon, we would think. I just had a look at Jones's last 3 miles. They went 4:52, 4:55, 5:03. So he's definitely slowing down, but it's a question of how much he can hang on and how much Robleh can pick up. And then, you know, when he gets the incentive, if he does get him in sight, that gap will close very, very quickly. He's got to get there.
Showing there, but still running strongly, isn't he, Bruce?
This has been a great battle because I thought Kristiansen some 5 minutes ago was in all sorts of trouble as we go back to Jones, but she and Benoit are still having this enormous struggle. You can see Castella some 40 or 50 metres behind Robleh. Now, the rest of the group is well and truly gone. They're way back.
They're not inside at all.
So it's going to be tough for Castella now. He's got a great chance of running a personal best if he can hang on to his pace, but he's left on his own, and he's obviously... Robleh's put a pretty big space in him then and not very much time, which is not all that good.
It's amazing to think that these two runners are running... Robleh's probably running around 2:07 pace. Rob's probably running about half a minute slower than that, and they're not yet in contention to win this race. It's just an indication of how well Jones has run, how bravely Jones has run.
30 seconds a mile.
Just 1:50.41 there we saw. That was probably 23 miles. So Jones is still under 5:10 mile pace. That was about 5:09 that last mile. Just going back to that Hiroshima race, though, Bruce, I think undoubtedly this is a fantastic single performance that we're seeing, but that's the other Djibouti runner, I think, running with Benoit there.
It wasn't Shemake, but it was the third runner from Djibouti. They've got 3 in this race and 3 in New York.
Looking at Hiroshima, it was just a fantastic race where we had perhaps not the top 4 or 5 runners in the world, but so many of the rest, and I think there was a huge pack of about 30 still in.
Started, Bruce, we posed the question, could the 2 best times be bettered in the men's and women's? And the way this is going at the moment, we're in for a great finish to this Chicago Marathon of 85.
Well, this is the critical part for Jones. As Lenny said just before the break, that if he continues to run at the pace he is, he's going to be almost spot on what Lopez ran earlier this year in Rotterdam. Benoit, on the other hand, we haven't had a split for a little while, but she's around about the 2:21. Now, there's still a half a mile between Robleh, who's in second placing, and Jones, who's leading. So it means 2 things. One, they're running at the same pace, so Robleh obviously can't beat Jones at this stage. And,
not at this stage.
And Benoit, who's always been inside the world record pace. Now we're about to get Benoit's projected time. It's around 2:20.25, so it's still well inside. Well, not well inside, but it's still 40 seconds inside the world record.
Comfortable margin, but of course she's got 25 minutes of running to go yet, so just over 4 miles.
Do you think it will help her now, knowing that Kristiansen's gone and the fact that she's got the race won if she can maintain this?
Oh, sure. I think I think mentally this is probably what she's wanted the whole race, to just be out on her own, running to the line.
And what about Jones's situation? And he's obviously hurting like hell after that early pace, and he's gone through 24 miles. He's getting within
1:55.42. It's really going to be touch and go, I think, and I think it could even depend on how conscious he is of how close he is to the record.
With London and Chicago, but in terms of strength of field, probably this year London and Chicago a little stronger.
Well, there's Alberto Salazar there in picture.
He's feeling a lot more comfortable than he has in most of his last few marathons, I'd say.
He must be... This is the guy that ran 2:8.13 on a short course in 1981. He must be scratching his head and thinking, what's this Jones fellow all about? This is in a different league again, going out at 2:3 pace.
That's right. I don't... Well, I mean, we just haven't seen a half that fast, an opening half of a marathon that fast.
And likewise in the women's race, we haven't seen one any quicker, I don't think. Kristiansen was probably on a par in London.
Let's have a look at the exact splits on the women's race. Perhaps they weren't quite... Certainly that first 5 miles, they were a lot faster, and that makes it a pretty tough race. But certainly by the time they got to halfway, they weren't running a great deal faster than either of them have gone through before. But still, that first 5 or 6 miles was pretty tough.
So both Jones and Benoit have got both their respective races won, as long as nothing incredible happens to either of them. And we'll see just what's going to happen to Steve Jones in just a moment as we take a break and try and bring him in for his second world's best in the Chicago Marathon for the second year in succession. Because the split difference is going to be... Well, there's 2:6.49, they're saying, so that's... gives him still a 23-second cushion, but the negative split's got... Well, not negative, but...
I think I'll go out on a limb here, though, Bruce, and say that finishing time's calculated on the average for the whole race, not what he's running now, I'd say.
You can see how much he's hurting, but the fact that he went through in 61.46 and he's going to come home in 65-something, or maybe not quite 66, is going to be an enormous difference, something that we haven't seen before in the great fast races.
Yeah. I think, you know, this man's ready for any sort of race now. It's just a fantastic run. I think the record's almost immaterial when you see a bloke prepared to go out and run a major marathon in this manner. I just can't... I mean, we couldn't believe it when we saw it at the start, and we can't believe it now. He's just gone out and destroyed a world-class field, and he's run almost as fast as any man's ever run through the halfway point of a marathon. It's amazing. Gee,
Lenny, he's really hurting at the moment. He didn't take a drink stop there. This is a little rise up the hill. You can see where he is on the map. If he just ran straight across that lake there, he'd be home, but he can't do it, unfortunately. He's just got to run around it.
Those photographers, they're unbelievable. Well, they get so close.
Ridiculous. Unfortunately, they don't know exactly what it's like to run in a race like this. I'm sure to get so close, it's just foolhardy and silly.
I wouldn't bet that Steve Jones couldn't run across that lake at the moment,
no,
Bruce, but I just think he'd be disqualified, that's all.
He could walk across it, I'm sure. But this really is a Superman. I mean, Lopez is a magnificent runner, and it's very hard to compare. We're just so lucky to see two marathoners that are so great in the same period. You know, Rob de Castella's an outstanding runner, a wonderful runner, but not even Rob at his absolute best could have done what Steve's done today.
I guess in a sense it's a pity that I mean the development of these big sponsored marathons has been a great thing, but can you imagine the sort of race we'd have had if they'd all been together in Hiroshima? Jones, Lopes, de Castella. What a great race. We had the best race ever for depth, and with all the top stars in it as well. What a great race that would have been.
Well, Jones, in fact, went through the 25-mile mark in 2 hours and 55 seconds, so that really is a superhuman effort.
So that made that mile 5:13 then, which
yeah,
makes it a little bit
better.
Of
seconds, so.
Which helps him in his quest to break Lopez's record.
I reckon we should all be willing him on from here. I mean, as I keep saying, I think we've seen one of the greatest marathons that anyone's ever run, regardless of what his finishing time is exactly going to be. And, well, if I believed I could do something to help him from here.
Well, Benoit's slow. That's the first time she's been outside the world record projected finish, but what she's done today is just re-established again who the queen of distance marathon running is concerned with the women. She's really broken Kristiansen right up, and Mota's never really been in the hunt. So Jones, who's probably looked across there and can almost see where the finish is, and he's got less than... let's hope he's got less than 2 minutes to run.
Well, he's just about to swing into Lincoln Park, actually, and that's the where the finishing line is.
So here's a guy who, Dave, in the 3 races that he's finished, he's run the two races that he's finished so far, has run 2:8:05 and 2:8:16. He's won this race and also London. He knows what the big time's like. He's run in the Olympic final of the 10,000. That incredible 10,000-metre final in Helsinki. He wasn't part of the action in the last little bit, but he was in that final.
So Joan Benoit as well, her best time of 2:22:43, which was set in Boston in '83, one of her 2 wins in that marathon. The Los Angeles Olympic champion, 13 marathons. This will be her 8th win. And she hasn't lost a marathon since 1981.
Jones is definitely picking up his pace now. I think he knows how close he is to the finish. This is one last effort.
So the time...
if he's judged it right, he could just about be under Lopez's time.
So the time we're looking at is 2:7:12. Let's hope that Steve Jones has got less than 50 seconds to run. I can remember last year we had a good long look at the finish. It's a long straight they ran up. So Jones has got to try and dig in and find something. So we're going to try and do what happened last year and get him in under 2:8:05 as he did last year for the world record. But I'd say, looking at where he is and looking at the finish line, he might have some problems going in under 2:7:12. It's hard to tell.
Yep. Well, as I keep saying, let's not dwell on the record too much. This has been a fantastic run.
He really is starting to pick up that pace, though.
He's sprinting for the line.
He is sprinting for the line.
He's got 20 seconds. He's got to get home in less than 20 seconds. Jones, who ran his first half of this race in 61:46, split the best field up for the year, maybe Hiroshima you can argue with, but has destroyed the best field of the year. He looks like he's going to just miss the world record. We can't see where the finish is. This is touch and go. Have a look at this. I think he's either equalled or broken it. I think he's equalled it. 2:7:11 or 2:7:12. And look at the Superman. What a man, what an athlete. 2:7:11. If we round it off to 2:7:12, then we have joint world record holders, Lopez and Jones.
Lopes' time was 2:7:11 across the line, but it was later. Many of the digital clocks, of course, they don't show the splits, and the rules are that the time must be rounded up to the next highest second. So,
I think we've probably seen the world record equal.
We've seen one of the greatest races of all time. I think we've at least seen the world record equal. And really, Steve Jones, what a run. What can you say? And
what a performance over the last half a mile of that race, the way he could dig in and sprint. Now, Djama's coming in. Now, he's going to be around 2:8. His best is 2:8:26. So Robleh Djama's going to be under that. He's going to run about 2:8:5, I think, or 2:8:6. They're about to get his... I hope they get him over the line. No, they missed him. That's ridiculous. That's bad luck. I don't know who's directing over there, but it would have been nice to see what he ran.
I would have been quite pleased to see what he's run, but he's run a PB, and I reckon he's dipped under 2:8.
We'll find out in a moment, because we are in contact with Chicago, but we'd guess he's run about 2:8:05. Now, Benoit's still about 14 or 15 minutes away, so I hope we can get Castella coming in and some of the other male runners as well.
Benoit was just outside the world record pace for the first time, the last split they gave, but she was well under her own personal best of 2:22:43, which was set in Boston in 1983, and probably regardless of there's Rob finishing 2:8:51. That's not a bad run.
That's at 33 seconds.
Well, I can tell you that.
And what a performance it's been, Bruce.
Incredible, and Len seems to think that she's picked up, and looking at her now, she's looking fresh. We think she might just miss the world record, but it's going to be a huge American record, and it's not going to be very far outside.
No, I'm trying to work out splits in my mind for the last 385 yards, but I've got to get into the 26-mile mark in about 2:20:10. So I think that would not give her enough cushion over that 385 yards to break the world best, but it's going to be very close, and fantastic run, as we've said.
We've also got to remember that there's a huge difference between Kristiansen's best time and the next best time ever run, which was Benoit. It was a minute and 3/4, which is an enormous difference at 2:21:06 compared with 2:22:43. So Benoit's been able to take some time off, have a bit of a break mentally, I think, after the Olympic Games, get herself right again and come back and run even faster than ever.
Well, there's one of the 2 lagoons, which suggests that she's not all that far away from Lincoln Park, the finishing post of the 1985 Chicago Marathon.
It's an interesting line in support of not running marathons as frequently as people have run them in the past. Benoit's run 1983 Boston, the 1984 Olympic trial because she had to, 1984 Olympics, and now 1985 Chicago. We've just heard
There was a feeling earlier on in her career that she wasn't quite as good as Greta in the big occasion, but that's certainly not the case. She didn't run in Helsinki, of course, which was a strange decision at the time because she'd broken the world record earlier that year, but looking back, it might have been the wisest thing she'd ever done.
Well, it certainly probably set her up for the Olympic victory. She's always had a lot of trouble with her Achilles tendons. She's had operations on them in the past, and there's talk that she may require more surgery in the near future, but so perhaps it was a wise decision in those terms that it preserved her legs for another year.
Well, the hopes of 220 have disappeared, Bruce.
Yeah, 220's disappeared, but you know, we call Jones a superman. Well, I think this is a superwoman. We're at 220 right now, as Len's watch goes off next to me, and she's not too far away from it, and like Jones, I'm sure she's going to raise an extra effort over the last 385 yards.
I reckon. Again, it's just an amazing run. The competitive element of it's been absolutely fantastic. She had Kristiansen at her shoulder for, well, almost 20 miles of the race, then put in a decisive break. She must have been aware Kristiansen was chasing hard again and almost closed it down, so the temptation must have been to ease back again. But then she just kept pushing all the way through to the line, and this is a great run.
Well, the mark we're looking at is 2:21.06, which is the time Ingrid Kristiansen set in London this year. The fastest ever time for a female marathoner. But what a great performance by Joan Benoit of the United States.
Yes, Dave, not the fastest ever run, but just about the greatest marathon ever run. I mean, her performance in Los Angeles was thrilling in warm conditions, and here in Chicago, where the weather's been much kinder, we're seeing the #1 runner in the world who has now missed the world record, but I don't think that's all that significant. It's going to be an enormous personal best, a huge American record, and she's finished very strongly because she's going to be inside that projected time, and she's taken a lot off that 21:27, so 21:20. So Benoit, in a spectacular victory, maintains her superiority over her Ingrid Kristiansen, 2:21:20. Looks back to see if Ingrid's coming. Nobody there.
It's the first time she's looked back to, I think.
And sees them straight under the eyes. And well, I suppose you can't call it good luck all the time, but Bob Bright, who's the race director, really has got the hottest race in the world. There's no question. We had an amazing performance by Jones last year, and today, you know, is this Kristiansen coming in?
I believe it is.
Yes,
yeah.
so Ingrid's hung on very, very well. She's around 2:22. She might break no, she might just miss out on 2:20, going under 2:23. So she's really hung on very well. We're looking at 2:23.03, which is in fact her second fastest ever. It's well inside the time that she ran in London when she ran the European record back in 1984. So at 2:23.03, that's her second fastest ever, and would that be the fourth fastest ever run, with Benoit having run 2 faster and herself 1 faster? I think it would be.
Bruce, you're testing me on the figures, but I'll say you're right, yeah.
So here we have...
At this hour.
And look at Rosa Mota. Well, Mota's run 2:20...
3.5 minutes almost. Sorry, 2.5 minutes off her best
so
last year.
She's absolutely thrilled about that. So she's run 2:23.30. So, David, what we're going to see here is a succession, I think, of huge personal bests. And Kristiansen must have known that Mota was closing. I mean, there wasn't a lot in it at the end. Mota must have been able to see Kristiansen.
Yep, yep.
Well, that's an incredible, something around about 8 minutes off Rosa Mota's first ever marathon winning time, and that's only, what, in 2 years?
That was her first ever in Chicago. She had won the European back in 1982 on a hot day in Athens in 2:36. So she's come down from winning a major championship 3 years ago in 2:36 to running 2:23.